There we go. So we are recording this now. And I will share the screen. There we go. Voila. Can you see all of it, or are you seeing just the faces? Okay. This program is about winter hive prep, and that includes weighing the hives to make sure they get to the target weight that you want. And why is this not coming in here? And we have lots of other fall and winter actions that I wanted you to be aware of. I want you to be very cognizant of watching videos from people all over the country, all over the world. Know where your advice is coming from. Most of the videos online are 20 degrees farther south than us. And that makes a big difference on how we handle our hives. We're not in Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Hawaii, Tennessee, any of those southern or even western states, very west. That's not our climate, and our climate requires different methods of handling our hives to get ready for the winter. I felt it was important to go over hive weight with you because it's a rough estimate of the amount of stores available for the bees for the winter. In our region, our colonies go 6 to 7 months without a nectar flow. So the hive weight is a really good indicator on whether or not we need to feed them or not. They need to have an additional 80 to 100 pounds of weight on them going into the winter because they have to survive that long without a nectar flow. And this is going to be their food for the remainder of the winter season. And how do we determine our hive weight? Well, we put the hive into its winter configuration. So if you've got 4 deeps right now, and you know you want to go into the winter with 2 deeps, you need to get it into that configuration. You need to start reducing your boxes down. You can do that a number of ways. You can pull your empty frames on the lower boxes and fill it up with some honey. You can use a Vivaldi board, which will, it's like a one-way escape board. So it lets the bees go down, but they can't come back up. So you can begin to reduce the size that way. And then you're going to want to use a bathroom scale to weigh your hives. And I know it sounds funny, but you really can use a bathroom scale. You don't want to use a digital one. You want to use those old analog ones. You can pick one up at Walmart really cheap. I think they're only $9.99. That has the dial on it. You want to strap your hive together. Pictures I pulled up show using ratchet straps, and they've only ratchet strapped it the long side. I ratchet strap it both ways. And the reason being is I don't want to take the chance of having, like that bottom picture, having stuff slide out. Normally it wouldn't because they're propolizing everything that they can this time of year. But you're going to lift one corner, you're going to one side, and you're going to slide that hive, the scale right underneath the hive. Sometimes I'll put a shim board on there, real light shim board, just to protect the scale. It's really easy to do, but a second person can be really helpful. One can tip while one puts the scale in. This is a really important chart, and I can always email this slide to you. These are the target weights that you're looking for. The 2 deep bodies on a 10 frame equipment should weigh 135 pounds, and that includes the entire hive, your boxes, your base, your covers, everything. If you're using 2 deep bodies and a medium full of honey, it should weigh between 160 and 170 pounds. You know, if it comes in at 157, you're good. You know, it doesn't have to be, this is not an exact science, because a lot of it's going to depend on the size of your colony. It's going to depend on the genetics of your bees, the type of bees you have, the health of the colony, the weather, how soon it gets cold, and you know, when it gets warm in April, and whether or not our winter has severe temperature fluctuations. I would always plan for the worst and hope for the best. That would be my attitude about it. So you can always use this information, this chart, and make little adjustments. If you're bringing nukes, I know a couple of you do have nucleus colonies. You know, you're going to be looking for, on a 5 frame nuke, 55 pounds. So it's going to be a little easier to weigh your nuke. But that's what you're looking for. If you don't have that weight, I suggest you use the Mike Palmer feeding technique. We need to feed based upon need. We need to get the weight on fast. 2-to-1 syrup is what we suggest in the fall instead of our 1-to-1 that we use in the spring. That way it's less for them to dehydrate, to get to that optimal between 16 and 18%. In order to make 2-to-1 syrup, it's 2 pounds of sugar to 1 pound of water. It doesn't make a difference if you're doing it by volume or doing it by weight with granulated sugar. It is basically the same thing. 1 gallon of 2-to-1 syrup is going to give you about 10 pounds of hive weight gain. So you can get that, your numbers up, your weight up pretty quickly. So you want to feed the number of gallons of syrup needed to achieve your target weight. And you want to do that all at once. You don't want to give them a gallon and wait a couple of days for them to consume it and then give them another gallon. You want to give them all of this right away. So if your hive is 30 pounds shy going into the winter, you want to give them those 3 gallons of syrup all at once. So what you're going to do is you're going to remove your 2 top covers, your telescoping and your inner cover. You're going to place the feeders on shims directly on top of the frame bars. You're going to place a deep over those, and then you're going to re-put on both of your covers, your inner cover and your outer cover. This is going to keep the robbers out. You want to start feeding mid-September to the end of September for weight gain, because you want to have them be done by October 15th or 20th. This allows them a few weeks after that to get the rest of that syrup dry before the real cold weather. So this is what we do. This is kind of just a picture of exactly how it's done. You can see on the bottom of those paint cans, these are brand new paint cans, don't use reused ones. You can use gallon jars, half-gallon jars, quart jars. You can fill the place up, but as long as you have something, and it's got to be on those little shims. You can use paint stirrers. You can make shims if you'd like to. The shim should be around 3/4 of an inch thick. This colony needed to put on 40 pounds, so it's got 4 1-gallon cans of 2-to-1 syrup on it. This is what the top of the cans look like. You use a 4D nail and you punch holes in it, punching inward, not outward. You want to punch it inward so they don't have any of the sharp edges coming at them when they're feeding. You can also do the same to the top of a ball jar cover. Then after those are set, you're going to put the deep box over those feeders. That first picture shows what they look like. You're going to reset your inner and telescoping covers over that. Now the feeders are part of the hive. You don't have to worry about them building burr comb this time of year. Like we do in the spring, we're always worried about having extra space in the hive. We're feeding them 1-to-1 to build up and build more wax. They're not doing that this time of year. We're feeding them 2-to-1 specifically for them to fill those cells with extra sugar water for themselves, extra honey for the winter. So we don't have to worry about that extra space being filled up with burr comb. So on 10-frame equipment, this is what you can fit on your equipment. You can get up to 5 1-gallon cans on a 10-frame equipment. On 8 frames, you can get 4 1-gallon cans. On 5-frame Nucs, you can get 2 1-gallon cans, or 5 of the 2-quart canning jars, the half-gallon jars. On the double Nucs, you can put up to 4 2-quart canning jars, 1 on each side. And those feeders are usually emptied within days because they know they need that weight. So when you go to fill Nucs, feeding Nucs for the winter weight gain, it's the same method as the production hives. Use the feeder that'll fit in the Nuc box. If you've got a 4-frame Nuc, you may have to go to 2 quarts instead of, half gallons in order for it to fit in that smaller space. But you can fit probably 4 of them going the length of the hive. There are alternatives to fall syrup feeding. You can leave an extra super on. You can leave the heaviest frames when you're pulling supers. You can move honey frames between healthy colonies, so you can add extras, or you can add a candy board. I like to get them up to a really good heavy weight and save the candy board in case I need it in the end of January, beginning of February. There are other basic winter prep actions. Your Varroa mite population, your monitoring of that and the control. You should have been starting that in June and continuing approximately monthly. Your mouse guards should be on right now. If you don't have them on and you're just putting them on, be sure and do a deep hive inspection. You don't want to put that mouse guard on and already have mice in your hive that you've just closed in for the entire winter. You're going to want to put insulation under your telescoping cover. You're going to want to have both upper and lower ventilation. You're going to want to use your entrance reducers. They'll be behind your mouse guards. Wrapping or windbreaks for small or fall colonies with the evidence of, and this is really important, if they have viral disease or they're in a really windy location, or if you've broken their propolis seal. If they have any of those, then you're going to want to wrap. Other than that, if you haven't, and you've weighed them, they're up to weight, and you don't have to break any seals and you don't have to reduce, anything else down in size, then I would just leave them alone. Just do your entrances and mouse guards. Your Varroa and virus control is your #1 priority because it is the biggest killer of our bees through the winter. You want it, like I said, you want to start that monitoring and control in June and continue it monthly. You want to pay special attention to any nucs that you've brought in from out of state. I don't think any of you have any out of state nucs that I know of. Do an alcohol wash or a sugar roll. If there is nectar on the frames that you are shaking your confectionery sugar on, your sugar roll won't work because the bees get wet and then they roll around in that confectionery sugar and they become sugar balls. So you're going to want to use your rubbing alcohol, 70 or 91%. The 50% rubbing alcohol is not effective at taking the mites, detaching them from the bees. You can use the -20 windshield washer fluid, the winter blend. You can use denatured alcohol, or you can use a combination of a gallon of water with 2 tablespoons of Ultra Dawn. You want to make sure it's Ultra Dawn, not the regular Dawn. It does make a difference. You can use those also. Your action, your threshold at this time should only be 3 to 6 mites per 300 bees. You're looking at 1, you want to get to 1 in 100. Is really 0 is ideal, but you can tolerate 1 in 100. You want to monitor that mite load often, even post-treatment. So if you're doing a mite treatment right now and you're using Mite Away quick strips and they're going to be coming off in 10 days, 10 days from now, you're going to want to do another mite check. If you have a colony or your neighbors have colonies that are sick, you want to be alert to migration of those bees to your colonies, especially late in the season. This is a great table from Dr. Sam Ramsey. He is going to be the speaker for the New Hampshire beekeepers on October 17th. And you can go to the New Hampshire Beekeepers site to get the link to register for our fall meeting there. This is a free webinar, and he is a wonderful scientist that does not speak way above our level. He speaks like a normal person. And I'm not even going to go into all of these because he will be going through all of those on the 17th, that Saturday morning. So this will make a big difference also on these. But you need to know that mites transmit diseases to bees, and then bees transmit it to other bees. And here is a great list. This is the stuff that can be spread between the bees from the mites. These 6 viruses can kill your colony from the winter. If they have it going into the winter, this will kill them. So it'll depend on whether your hives die in December, January, February, or March, or sometimes even April. They'll go through the whole winter and they'll come out of it and won't make it. So it's pretty serious and you want to keep them healthy. We have some great ideas about mouse guards. You can make your own using the 1/2-inch hardware cloth. 3/8 is ideal. These pictures are pictures I found on the internet. So my little disclaimer is, they've cut those little prongs off on the edges to make them nice and smooth. Don't do that. Leave the prongs on. It'll help keep other critters out of the hive. It'll help deter them. Mary Ellen McKean, a lot of you have met Mary Ellen on our Zoom, our bi-weekly Zooms. And she gave me this picture of her, what she uses. She puts 5/8 inch nails in her entrance reducers. She uses a pair of needle nose pliers to hold the nails in place while she's hammering them. So you can do it on your large entrance and even your small entrance. You can put one right in the middle, and that will keep the mice out. Or you can buy mouse guards. Julie just picked up a couple from me. So you can pick them up online if you're not near us. You want to get some top insulation and some ventilation. You want to put some rigid insulation under the telescoping cover. That's 1.5 to 2 inches thick. You're going to cut it about 1/4 inch smaller than the cover inner dimensions. Otherwise, once you get it in there, you're going to have a difficult time getting it out. It'll have to come out in pieces. This way, it'll just come out. You want to maintain the top and the bottom ventilation. And I'm specifically talk about the bottom ventilation. That's really important for the draft for them. Through the winter, we go into the winter with about 30,000 bees in our colonies. They've already reduced in size from the summer, 60,000, to about half the size of what they were. And coming out of the winter, you're going to only have about 10, 12,000 bees. It's going to be the size of a 2-pound package. So there's a huge difference. Well, that other 20,000 bees have to go somewhere. And if they haven't gone out to meet their maker, they are on your bottom board. And if you don't go in periodically through the winter and clean out that bottom board, they're going to plug up that bottom entrance for you. You can use a tool made specifically for reaching in and just dragging everything out off of the bottom board. Before I had one of the scrapers, I used a yardstick. I would just go in and just put the yardstick in and drag it back out on an angle and cleaned it out. You can use your reducers through the winter. If you have a screened bottom board, you want to cover. Make sure you've got your slide in, and you want to tape up the back side that would have all that air entering. So you want to tape that up for the winter. Your inner cover, you want to have the notch down. If you have an inner cover that has a notch, you want the notch side to be down. If you have an entrance reducer, you want to put the notch up. That way, if some bees have died, you're going to have that space for them to be on that bottom board, and the notch entrance on top is going to be on the top. And if you've made any other entrance holes, like for your honey super or even a deep, sometimes we've notched entrance holes above the handle area, you want to tape them over. You want to make sure that those are all closed up for the winter. Here's what I was talking about. You want to install the entrance reducers. You want to use the smallest opening that doesn't cause a traffic jam. So if you've got this hive that is absolutely monstrous, you don't want to put it on that little 1-inch opening. You're going to want to have that 3-4 inch opening for them. Once the bees have clustered, you want to install that to reduce the cold winds from entering the hive. Hopefully you do not have your front entrance facing west, because our winds here in New England are predominantly from the west. And like I mentioned, you want to keep that notch up. That keeps it from being blocked by ice or dead bees. You want to remove those entrance reducers mid to late April. You don't want to leave them on, and you want to get that bottom board cleaned out. Insulating wraps and windbreaks. Like I said, if you're in a windy location, if you have a small colony, if you've got a colony with a high mite load or evidence of viruses in the fall, you want to give them every protection that you can. If you are working with solid bottom boards, when you go to wrap, I suggest that you lift your base, your bottom board base, 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch. Use a shim. This will keep any moisture running out the front of the hive instead of building up on that bottom board. So the first picture, that's a bee cozy. The middle picture, they've used tar paper, just a 20-pound tar paper. You can get it in a roll at Home Depot or Lowe's. You cut that tar paper about 85 inches to make your wrap around a 10 frame. Or you just may want a wind block like they did with these bales of hay. The only thing I don't like about using bales of hay as a wind block, they're great homes to mice and voles. They love it if the hay is there. You're like giving them a hotel to stay in for the winter, and then if you don't have a mouse guard on, now you're giving them a buffet on top of it, so they've got everything that they need. What Joe and I have done in the past is we've put those green garden stakes in on the west side of the hives that we've kept outside, and we drape a tarp over those. We put a cow panel up on them, strap it on, use zip ties, and then we put a tarp, just draped one side over the other, flat, so it makes a tarped screen for them. Oh, I've got this great, I'm going to click on this. This is David Burns. He is a master beekeeper, and he was one of my mentors. There we go.
Hello, I'm David Burns at Long Lane Honeybee Farms, and today I want to show you how to wrap up a hive for winter. A lot of people ask us, should you wrap your hive up with roofing paper? And I caution them about that because you can make too much humidity in the hive. This is an important piece of hive equipment that you want to use if you're going to wrap your hive. It's a spacer, and it's an upper ventilation and an upper entrance so the bees can come in and out. This is very important. You got to do this if you're going to wrap your hive. Otherwise, you'll have too much condensation inside the hive. And I've got, here's the roofing paper. And when you have a hive that's 2 deep hive bodies like this one is, and then 2 supers, it's the perfect size, about 36 inches tall, 3 feet on the black paper. And I've cut it to about 85 inches. I think that's right. About 80, 85 inches. So it'll go all the way around and lap over. And then I'm going to use a staple gun that you squeeze, and it just goes in far enough into the wood to lock in the black tar paper. So let me take you through the process. This hive is pretty busy.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm being told that you cannot see the video. Okay, let's see how I can do this here. Okay, let's see if I can get it to work now. Can you see this screen now, everybody? You can. So maybe I have to play it not on full screen. Can you hear it and see it now? Okay.
Hello, I'm David Burns at Long Lane Honeybee Farms, and today I want to show you how to wrap up a hive for winter. A lot of people ask us, should you wrap your hive up with roofing paper? And I caution them about that because you can make too much humidity in the hive. This is an important piece of hive equipment that you want to use if you're going to wrap your hive. It's a spacer and it's an upper ventilation and an upper entrance so the bees can come in and out. This is very important. You got to do this if you're going to wrap your hive. Otherwise, you'll have too much condensation inside the hive. And I've got, here's the roofing paper. And when you have a hive that's 2 deep hive bodies like this one is, and then 2 supers, it's the perfect size, about 36 inches tall, 3 feet on the black paper. And I've cut it to about 85 inches. I think that's right. About 80, 85 inches. So go all the way around and lap over. And then I'm going to use a staple gun that you squeeze, and it just goes in far enough into the wood to lock in the black tar paper. So let me take you through the process. This hive is pretty busy today. It's November the 9th. It's about 60, 65 degrees in November, so it's a good time to wrap up a hive. As you can see on the entrance, I've put my entrance reducer to keep the mice out. And so now I'm going to take the top off, put my spacer on, and then put my candy board on. Let me show you how that works. There are some bees at the top, but most of the bees are lower down. So this is my upper entrance and ventilation right here. Here's the candy board. So I'll place the candy board here. And now I'm ready to wrap the hive. When you wrap the hive, it's better to start where you don't have to play too long in the front when a hive is busy like this. So I'm going to kind of start off to the back, off to the side, wrap it around, and it will disturb the bees when I try to wrap across the front. But and then you'll see how it goes. is in. Now they found their entrance pretty easy, didn't they? We'll come back and cut a hole in the top in just a minute. So there's our upper entrance. And now I'm just going to fold some of this extra over a little bit. It's not important that you have extra, but it just works out that way. And if you've got a smaller hive configuration, you'll have to cut more off. There you go.
Okay. Let's see here. If anybody's got questions on anything that we've covered so far, unmute yourself. Laura, your son's shaking his head no. I love it.
I have something to add to the wrapping.
Okay.
What I do, because I don't know that most people have 2 deeps and 2 mediums, I take the standard size roll of tar paper and I cut it in half, perfectly in half, so it's not the full width, because it isn't as important for me that the bees be kept warm at the beginning of the season, because I want them to be kind of cool and stay in one place and maybe not eat so much food. So I pull my wrap up, and I also don't go that close to the top cover, because I find that the cover will clip the tar paper. So I just want it to go up to the top box, but not over the top box, because you saw how he folded and he had to do some origami there. The bees don't need that, and it really does make your life more difficult when you go to check on them.
Good points. Thank you.
I would.
Anyone else? Barbara? I guess not. Julie? You've got hives going.
I have questions.
Alan?
So the bees are gonna, I mean, just kind of naturally have attrition throughout the winter. So how do you get in there if like, you said you're cleaning out the bottom board, but how are you getting in there to do that? Because you don't want that to be wide open, and we can't take apart the hive in the winter, can we?
No, but you can take your mouse guard off.
Uh-huh.
And if you're using your entrance reducer,
Yep.
you can take that off and then go in and do it. You don't have to go into the whole hive.
I see what you're saying.
And then
Okay.
put
Now
those on.
that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
You just want to make sure that they have that entrance and that you have it free of bees that have caked up from attrition. And it's that also free of ice and snow.
Yep.
We have a couple of hives that we leave outside, and Joe has built like porch roofs for them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I put my entrance reducer upside down. So
Yep.
that,
Showed him that.
did you go up that? Okay. Sorry.
I like seeing the picture of the nails and the entrance reducers and mouse guard is something. I just added some hardware cloth, but it seems like the nails is a really nice addition to the entrance reducers to prevent as guard alternative.
It
Uh,
worked really well.
The other question I had is about the spacer. Is that a necessary piece of equipment? It seems like David Burns thinks it is if we're wrapping.
The reason he feels it's necessary is that it gives them the upper entrance.
So, okay. I'm trying to identify like principles, like things. I know that's helpful in my thinking and my learning is like principles to help, guide me through it. So it seems like upper entrance is the important component.
The upper entrance is the important component for two reasons. Number one, if your bottom entrance gets closed up or iced over or filled up with bees, it gives them that upper area to get out and do cleansing flights.
Okay.
The second reason is it is an avenue to vent off any extra moisture in the hive.
Right.
I was going to mention that he seemed to stress that the roofing paper can lead to moisture or can retain moisture, and so it was important to have that upper ventilation to wick that away.
Well, any method that you use for wrapping your hives, whether it's tar paper, bee cozy, insulation board, some people cut them and put the 4 pieces around the hive. Anything like that, you are helping them retain heat in the hive.
Mm-hmm.
When they retain more heat in the hive, you're going to get more condensation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your practice?
Well, the ones that we leave outside, we use a bee cozy, and Joe has made a winter hive box for them, which takes all of those things into consideration.
So
it gives them an upper entrance. It gives us a space about 3/4 to 1 inch deep that if I have to go on and add a sugar patty in the middle of winter, I can do that, and I have the head space so the equipment fits back down nice and tight.
So when you say a box, do you mean something like a sleeve going over the hive?
No, it's a medium box that's been configured with entrances. I should run and get one across the street. Basically, I'll show you. I'll just show you here. This is a front cutaway view of our winter box. This is the front entrance, just like that. And this dotted line is screening. So it gives us this upper entrance, and it gives us this space between the top of the bars and the bottom of the screen, that if we had to add a sugar patty, a winter patty for them, or even early in the spring. And I'm talking end of February. If I want to put a pollen patty in there, because that queen's already laying in February.
Wow.
Well, she starts with winter solstice. She's slowed down now.
She starts in December?
She starts after winter solstice. When our days start getting longer again, she starts laying more, and she'll continue to lay more and more each day. So by February, they've probably depleted their pollen stores, and they need that pollen in order to feed the brood coming up for the spring to keep
So
them.
early February, you start feeding pollen.
End of February.
End of February.
End of February. I start with the pollen patties for them. So
Okay.
then the back side, that's the front side. The back side of our winter hive box, there's the screening. I should be an artist. Can you see that? That's the back side. What sits on top of the screen is a piece of 3-inch PVC pipe. Okay? Then all around it are cedar shavings. So now I have that headspace. I have all these cedar shavings which act like a humiso. They absorb extra moisture. Above that, we have a piece of 1-inch foam insulation, the foam board. And it's been notched out to run from the middle of the hive all the way to this entrance, this hole in the top. And this PVC pipe acts as a chimney to vent any extra moisture. And
Gotcha.
it gives them this insulation on the top.
Can you sub sawdust for the shavings, the wood shavings? Just because that's like, I have a wood shop and have plenty of sawdust, but I don't have an abundance of, it's a free material for me.
I wouldn't use it because it's too fine.
Okay.
Because we use a piece of hardware cloth. We use a number 8 hardware cloth. And the pine, from your wood shop, the sawdust would go right through that.
Okay, I see.
I would think, though, that if you put a layer of muslin on top of that and then your sawdust, that would work. It'd be an extra step for you, but it probably would work. Try it, Talon. It'd be a great citizen science project.
Okay.
Try it on one of your
And then send us pictures so we can all see it.
Right, so we all know.
Well, that would be like a quilt box, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
I could probably ask questions all day. There's so much
That's
nuance.
all right, Talon, ask away. That's what we're here for.
The weight, in the configuration of the frames. In one of the previous North Country beekeeping meetings, we talked about like frame configuration with honey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to determine if I should or could pull any honey off my hives. So that's going to basically be a weight determination, correct?
Correct.
And so I've got 7 frames from the spring that I've stored. And I'm wondering if I should look to supplement, like when I should be getting in there as soon as I can when we have some, semblance of warmth left in our days, right? Like get in there, make the evaluation, put the frames I want in, maneuver the brood if I need to,
Right.
do my weight measurements and get out, right?
Yep.
It's, okay. And so what does everyone's configuration in terms of, like, do most people winter 2 deeps through the winter, or do people like look to do 2 deeps in a medium, or is it just dependent on weight?
Well, it doesn't make a difference. Whatever you're comfortable in bringing through the winter, if what you have are 2 deeps and you don't have a medium, then you're going to winter 2 deeps. But you want to make sure that those 2 deeps meet that weight configuration.
Right.
Okay. And if not, then you're going to have to use one of those supplements
Right.
that I talked about. So, but if you have 2 deeps and a medium that are full, that's a blessing. That's even more. You're all set. But make sure they're up to weight. You may go in with your 2 deeps and find that you're really shy, because one of
Yep.
those deeps may not have everything that you need.
Right.
You want to make sure that you've got at least 2 full frames of pollen. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be patchy, but, kind of eyeball it and put it together. And you want to have your brood in the middle.
If we're short on pollen, should we use a pollen substitute? And I haven't evaluated for the pollen yet, so just wondering, like, at this point, where are they still pulling in pollen from their environment on warm days, or?
Very little right now. Very little. There isn't a lot of pollen out there right now.
I've got bees in my pollen feeders right now, so I'm assuming that there isn't a lot of pollen out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put a pollen feeder out, they'll bring it in.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I mentioned this in our meeting, was it Monday last week? I still need to get I still need to plan to treat for mites, and I'm wondering at this point what my best option is probably going to be. What is it too late to do the Apivar strips?
Yeah, because I think it'll be too chilly where you are.
Yep.
But you could use Mite Away quick strips.
Okay. And was that a 10-day treatment?
Week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Barbara put a question out there. Is that the Vivaldi box? My microphone is not working and I must type questions. The Vivaldi box is the box that you use to reduce. Isn't that your one-way box, Barbara? Yeah. No, we're on speaker right now. Chocos, is the class all over? Not yet. Yeah, that's not called a Vivaldi box, Barbara. That's called a winter box. Let's see here. So the other thing that we had to cover today is extraction. And that's really important part of keeping our bees, because That's the good part. Let me get that video.
Today I'm going to show you how to extract honey from the honey supers.
Okay, hold on. We'll get David back up here. And I will share this. Okay, can everybody see that? Yeah, okay.
And this is a great thing to use, and it's just a piece of cardboard. Honey is a mess. You get one drop on a doorknob and everything's sticky, and you get one drop on the floor and everything's slippery. So this will make your cleanup a lot better if you just put a piece of cardboard down. And I'm going to set up some boxes, and I can put my frames in after I've extracted. So what I have here is just a box. Now you can spend a lot of money and actually purchase beekeeping equipment, or you can just buy a tub and you can actually put a nail through a piece of wood, and that helps hold your frame, and that way you can just cut off the cappings of on your frames. So I want to make this pretty clear. I know sometimes we get people that ask us, about how to extract honey, and how do you know the honey is ready to be taken off and such. And so on this frame here, I like it. Some people might say it's not totally sealed off down here, and my thought is that the bees were probably ready to cap it off. They've capped it off here, but just to be safe, I have had it a couple of days in a drying room, essentially a room with a dehydrator in it, dehumidifier, and there's not a lot of honey in there. So this one is going to be a little more difficult because it's kind of wavy, and so I'll show you. So what I do is this nail, I don't really poke it real hard. It just goes in there and kind of stabilizes it, plop. And then I just take a cold knife out of the kitchen. I don't like to use the hot knives. You can, they're fine. I've used them for years. But the hot knife, the thermostats aren't outstanding on them, and it starts to kind of caramelize the honey, and so it makes it a different flavor. It's good honey, but I don't like that burnt taste. And I'm going to save all the cappings. I'm going to get the honey out of the cappings, but simply just start by opening up the cap. So some of you are brand new to beekeeping, and I want to make sure you understand what I'm doing here. The bees bring in nectar into these cells here. Nectar is high in water content. It is almost like water. Once that nectar gets in here, the bees begin to fan it and dry it. When it reaches about 18% moisture level, the bees produce wax from their wax glands, and then they cap it off just like you do when you're canning. You can something, cook it, put it in the canning jar, you put a lid on it. They put a lid or a wax seal on top of the cells once they dried out by fanning their wings, so that no more water will be drawn into the honey. So this is nectar, and once they dry it, it's honey. Opening the cans up, so to speak. We're just opening the top of the sealed cells with our knife, and that way this will bring about all the honey that allows us to spin it out in our extractor. There's really no easy way to do it. Again, a cold knife works very nicely. Now, I like to save all this wax that I'm producing here, or cutting, because I'll use that to coat my frames to get them a little better pull on new foundation. So, what I do now, you can see there's parts of it that aren't very open because of that little groove right there, and I just take a scratcher. Now, these work better than a fork out of the kitchen. They're really pointy, and I just simply take this and I begin to scratch open. See how that tears open the caps on top of these places that my knife didn't reach, right? Okay. And then you just spin it around and do the other side. And if you've got a frame that's really drawn out a lot, and some people prefer 9 frames because those frames sometimes get pulled out wider than if you have 10 frames, then it's a lot easier to cut the caps off. So I use the wood on the frame to kind of give me a guide. I put my blade on the wood unless it's really thick, drawn out. Okay. Got most of them opened up here, and now I'll use my scratcher to scratch open the rest. And that one's ready. And I'll put it in my extractor. And some of you might have more elaborate extracting systems. We're using this one for demonstration purpose. I just simply set it in here. And so that you'll know, again, I understand that some of you really don't know up from down about this, but what we're going to be doing is spinning it really fast. Centrifugal force will pull out the wax, or I'm sorry, the honey from that frame. So we'll just set it in there for now. Let's get one more going. This is another frame that might be a little more difficult to open. Let's see. You can see, oh no, it's going to be good. So I've got my wax. Might be safer if you're using a knife. Don't cut your fingers. Make sure that you know where your fingers are at all times. Might be safer to cut down away from your body, away from your other hand. And you can see how I'm just cutting open the wax cappings. But I'm kind of running out of room. It's not as deep as I wanted it. It's not as pulled out. So I have to use my scraper. Okay, very good. Go to the other side, which is kind of a little different. There's not a lot of honey. There's some pollen here, and this is mostly dry. But I want what's on the other side. I'm just going to use my scraper here. It's just going to be easier for me to scrape that little portion open. Okay. You put this in your extractor. And once you get everything in, position. Then you want to put your plastic lids on if you have a small extractor like this. And by the way, this little extractor, there's no need to go crazy and buy the best and the biggest. A little extractor like this really will go a long way. Now we're just letting the honey flow out of the extractor through a strainer on top of a 5-gallon bucket, and that way it gets all the little wax particles out, and it makes a real pure product. I use about a 400 micron filter, and that's about all you need really to. And it's really not filtering. I like to think of it as straining, so you have a real raw product.
There you go. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? You can also do a crush and strain. I know some of you have already seen that done. We've done it a couple of times with North Country beekeepers. And that's where you cut everything right off of the frame. Crush it. And you're basically putting it, I put mine through a heavier colander first to get all the big chunks out. And then I go through the...
Hey, it's Frank here with 4D Honeybee, and today we're going to start our first honey extraction. Very excited about it.
Bye, Frank. So then we put it through the double strainer, and that works really well. Those can go right on top of a 5-gallon bucket. Makes it very easy. North Country Beekeepers does have those boxes, does have all the equipment, and does have an electric extractor. that can be borrowed when you're a member. So it makes it all that much easier because all the tools, everything's right there in one thing. Some of the hacks of extracting is when you want to clean up afterwards, because now you've got all these little particles of wax all over the place. The easiest way to clean them up is to use cold water. Don't use hot water because it just makes them soft and melted and spreads the mess. Go with cold water first, get as much as you can off. Then you can go with your hot water if you want to disinfect everything after. Do you have any other life hacks? I can't hear you, Mary Ellen.
I go outside and I take the hose and I put it on full blast and I'll spray everything with the cold water, and that works really, really well to get the wax off. Unfortunately, I have a drain in my driveway, so it all goes someplace. And then after that, I will disinfect it and set it out in the sun because I use bleach. So between the bleach and the sun, that gets it clean.
Good. The other thing is when you are bottling it, now you have got all this honey, and you want to jar it or store it. Be sure that you've sanitized your jars and dried them really well before you put your honey in them. You want to fill them to like 1/4 of an inch from the top. You don't want to leave a lot of airspace in there. Make sure that the pails you're using are food grade. That makes a huge difference. You don't want to use anything that's going to contaminate your honey. Gone through all this work. The bees have done all this work. You've done all this work, and you don't want to have it go bad on you. The wax cappings. He didn't talk much about that afterwards.
No, he didn't.
This is what I do. I take those wax cappings and I throw them in a really good vodka.
I'm making a plum cordial right now. That might go well with it.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't take long. You know, you're basically rinsing your wax cappings with the vodka, and that works really well. Then you can rinse your wax cappings with water afterwards and dry them.
I can't believe I've been missing out on this vodka hack all these years. Oh my God.
That'll take care of those drinks during Zoom meetings, won't it?
Guess what people are getting this year for Christmas.
Yeah. So, I mean, and when I have extra wax, we have all this extra wax that we've cut through the season. You know, Burcombe, everything else, I keep throwing it in a 5-gallon pail or in a bucket that's in the greenhouse, a covered bucket. Then you want to take those and wrap them up in an old t-shirt, and you want to use a very old crock pot that you can pick up at a yard sale for $5. You won't use it for anything else afterwards. You want to put about 1 inch of water in that crock pot and throw that t-shirt in and put it on low. You don't want to do it on high, it'll make the wax too hot. You want to melt it all down, and once it's all melted, you're going to squeeze out that t-shirt. What's going to be left inside the t-shirt is like a slum gum, that dark comb from brood and bee pieces. So you just want to take that and use it as a great fire starter because it works really well. You're going to let that crock pot cool as it cools, the wax shrinks away from the edges. It's sitting on the water, and once it's totally cool, that'll pop right off, and you're going to have a nice, clean round of wax.
Have you
Oh,
mentioned the cappings being the purest wax for things that you use for cosmetics?
Yeah, no, I haven't mentioned that, but thank you for bringing it up. So if you are doing lotions and salves, the wax cappings are the purest. They have not been contaminated by either treatments, by pollen, by bees walking all over it like crazy. It hasn't been like brood chrome that's been used a zillion times. It gets darker each time it's used. It's the whitest, it's the purest. And you'll be happy if you've kept it separate. Anybody else? Any other questions? Talon, you lit up, but I can't hear you. Okay.
So we want insulation on the top and the bottom of the hives, right? I'm just trying to like wrap my head around all of this information.
You want insulation on the top. You want ventilation on the top and the bottom.
Okay. Okay. So we don't need to put like solid rigid. We don't need to put the hive on like rigid insulation or anything like that.
If you have a screened bottom board,
Solid bottom board.
you have a solid, then you're all set. Then you don't need to do anything else.
Okay. And yeah, I think I'm good. It's gonna do it. Can I purchase some of the I guess the Might Away quick strips or what I'm gonna need to do? Can I purchase some of those from you and pick them this week? I might actually I might take like a half day from school so I can get this done, but I'm worried because I coach soccer, so I might I'm worried I'm not gonna have any time before winter sets in to get this mite treatment done.
You can scoot over this afternoon if you want. Have it.
Yeah.
Julie,
Sun's not coming out till around 3 this afternoon here, so I'm waiting a little while to do mine. But if I get a chance to head up to Littleton, is there a chance that I could take a look at Joe's porch roof and top box creation?
sure,
Okay.
no problem.
Okay, great.
It's pretty simple. Barbara, you have any more questions? Her microphone is not working. And I know Jen doesn't have a hive, and I know Lori doesn't have a hive, but Lori is like biting at the bit.
I have you winter your hives indoors, right? Is that
Not all of them. We took half of them last year and put them indoors. We went in with 47 and came out with 45.
yeah?
Amazing.
I'm wondering if that's is like, should I be trying to do that in my first year? Because I have a
No.
okay.
It's a totally different way of setting up your hives for the winter. We bring them down to one box. We set them up that basically they have 10 frames of honey, no brood when they go in, just the queen and all the bees and 10 frames of honey. So it's a little tricky to do.
And you have climate control, so that's it's
Right.
not you brought them in the garage for the winter.
Right. I mean, they're set up so, I mean, there's temperature and humidity control in there. You have to remember, we had 47 hives in there that were putting out heat and moisture from their hives all winter. Joe was concerned, since this was the first winter that we were doing a big scale like this, that they would get cold. And we had that 20 below morning, and he got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning and ran out there to check on them. And they had that bee room, it's 20 below outside, they had the bee room at 39 degrees.
Wow.
So we didn't have to heat that room at all. What we had to do was vent the CO and vent any extra moisture. So Barbara asked if the bees being born now are the winter bees. Yes. And so this is why it's really important for them to be as healthy as possible, because if those winter bees are healthy and strong, they're going to last those 6-7 months for us. If they're not, they're only going to last 3 or 4, and they're going to die in the middle of the winter. So that's why it's important to keep them strong. You're welcome, Barbara. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Anybody else? I think we've covered everything. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us in doing this program on a Zoom. And I know we're going to be starting classes again in January. We're going to go through Beekeeping 101. Some of you have already signed up for all the classes but missed the first couple of classes. So we'll be in touch with what those dates are, so you can get caught up on the beginning end now that you've had the back end. Sadie is crying, so you have to be good. I don't know what else, but I want to thank you. I want to thank you all for taking some time out of your Sunday afternoon to do this. Yes, everyone is welcome to join the Zoom. Mary Ellen put the link up there. And don't forget, do you have the link for New Hampshire Beekeepers registration handy?
No, but I can get it.
Yeah. It's very cool that most of the beekeeping clubs, the 10 clubs in New Hampshire, are all sharing their meetings now, so it makes it fun. And we've gotten to meet a lot more beekeepers.
It's just the newhampshirebeekeepers.org. It's right on the front page.
Yep. Barbara asked, pollen patties in her freezer left over, can I use them later this winter? Yes, if they've been frozen. If they've just been in the refrigerator, no. Just make sure and thaw them out first. You don't want to put that in the hive frozen. So, well, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. And
Thank you, Janice.
I hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day today and the sun comes out. Take care.
Thank you.